silence.
All right.
So I'll tell you, you know what else is waning as well is actually Diablo. Looking at the schedule, and then also from what I've heard, that Blizzard has actually come up and said that they're not going to be announcing anything new for Diablo. It's kind of disappointing to me. Like, I mean, I've only been so much of a fan of the past couple of years. I don't really play it as much anymore, but I'm at least surprised that there isn't at least some sort of character pack or anything.
There is rumors. There's rumors that there might be a character pack. There might be a surprise character pack, and it might be another like Diablo 2.
Druid.
Yeah, Druid.
Druid.
So cool.
Yeah, I think that might have been. I don't remember where I heard that, Reddit or something. Probably that's where I read all my things.
Yeah, it's just a Reddit rumor. I don't know how much stock I'll give that. I mean, I'm looking at the schedule here, and I just don't see much. There's a couple Diablo slots, but it's like visual effects of the Necromancer.
So Geek and Sundry actually tweeted out that some of their people were going to be at BlizzCon doing stuff. There's going to be a voice actors panel, and there's going to be a lot of the big voice actors there: Liam O'Brien, Matt Mercer, Laura Bailey, and others that do lots of Warcraft, Overwatch voices, and whatnot. And they actually said in that little mini snippet article that there was something special they were doing with Diablo.
Oh.
So I was just like, that's interesting. So I don't know. I think there's a possibility that we could see another character pack, because it seems like the Necromancer did really well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seems to me like, from just Blizzard's standpoint, doing these little character packs and then a chunk of free content to go with them seems to be a really easy thing from a Diablo 3 content team perspective, to have a small Diablo 3 content team to keep that kind of stuff flowing while the bulk of the main team works on Diablo 4 or whatever.
Yeah,
that's just my
I hope you're right,
but it could be.
I definitely hope you're right.
I could see that, but I don't want to get too deep into it just because this is a hero show. But I would hope before too long, like I would be okay with another character pack or two, but I would also love to see a Diablo 4 or something else branching off in the story.
Sure.
So, and we'll get more in depth into BlizzCon stuff as the weeks get closer here and more data mining comes out and more news comes out. So stay tuned.
And I'll
for
get
that.
sadder and sadder that I'm not doing.
Also up here, Diva, the new skin is out. Diva the Destroyer. There is a bundle that contains Diva the hero, the Diva the Destroyer skin. I can't say any of these. The Diva the Destroyer Lisk skin and the Diva the Lifebender skin, which are all really cool. There are more skins, skin tints, just not in that bundle. Those are the 3 that come in the bundle. So
they did kind of aspects for her.
Yeah.
They did.
Which is pretty
well,
cool.
and Zerg, but yeah, the Lifebinder is Alex Straza.
Yes. They're pretty neat. It's a good looking skin. I will probably pick it up at some point, but considering I
will lament that I cannot buy the individual tints with gems.
Yep.
Right. Fair point.
I'm not gonna harp on it, but I am going to mention it because this is just one of those things. I got on and I was just like, oh, the bundle's like 1,200 and some gems, and I just want this tint, but it's 2,400 shards. Yep. And I'd have to wait 2 weeks for it to go down, and there's no other way to get it besides the bundle. Please let me give you my money.
I was,
but
that
just
way.
Not that much money.
I have built up enough self-control now to where I realize I don't play Diva a lot right now, so I can wait until it goes off or gets cheaper for gems.
Yeah,
I'm sure you just get it out of the chest, which is what I'm waiting for.
It is.
Yeah, it's an amazing skin, but I think I'm gonna, since I can't get them individually with gems wise, I'm gonna hold off and wait till it drops shard price. I think.
Fair point. Honestly, I hate to say this, but I was a little underwhelmed with the skin. I took it into try mode just to see. I was just looking for special animations and that sort of thing. And yeah, it looks cool, but I don't know. It's not. To me, it's not currently worth my 2,400 shards to try to pick up.
It definitely isn't as detailed as like the teaser artwork that came out, which makes sense.
It seems like it might not be there might be some bugs with it, or it might not be quite finished or something, because it was saying it had a theme voice pack, and from all I've heard, it's using just Diva's regular voice set right now as well. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's still some bugs with it, or maybe some particle bugs, or the voice pack bug. I don't know. I mean, but the concept is really amazing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It looks pretty good in game. But I know some people are talking about how the actual effects don't change color when you change the skin colors too, and so it's just the red fire with the blue one, or the green one, or whatever.
We had that discussion like a month or so ago.
We've got emails about that.
That's a thing.
That's kind of common. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I'm not saying. I'm more just saying that people. I've seen people that are saddened that is a thing, and it's not copied over tints.
I would agree.
Change colors for a legendary skin and stuff. But we had the discussion on there's not a whole lot of context around what a legendary is necessarily, or what an epic is, or what a rare is anymore.
Yeah.
But all that is to say, I'm probably going to get it.
Yes. So,
but it just may be after the shard price drop.
Mm-hmm. And potentially, again, some bugs with that skin. But there were, speaking of bugs, a hot fix that came out on the 2nd here. Pretty short, so I'll just go through them here real quick. And they fixed an AI bug where AI heroes could walk through enemy bases rather than path around it when attempting to escape.
I had this in our team league game.
Saw this?
When one of our people disconnected, it was the saddest thing ever.
Did they get stuck or what?
It was no, it was a Falstad, right? The person disconnected. So the Falstad started to run away from the person, instead turned around and then ran into the tower, the open enemy gate and tower, and just started getting hit.
Oh wow.
I got you.
And hit. Yeah. It was bad.
I think it's sad. There's minion and mercenary bug fixes. They fixed an issue where minions and mercenaries ignored some summoned units like rocket turrets, photon cannons, and the laser drill, Draken laser drill. Battlegrounds, infernal shrines, punishers, and mid lane will no longer occasionally become stuck prior to reaching the enemy keep. That'd be annoying. Volskaya Foundry, mercenary camp respawn timers will no longer suddenly appear and begin counting down if the camp has only been partially cleared. Brightwing phase shift no longer to be placed on full cooldown when interrupted by root silence or polymorph. That is good. Diva, no longer become permanently stuck after colliding with structures or terrain after using boosters.
Also a good one. And the next two are actually really good because I ran into the Diablo one multiple times.
Yeah, so Diablo Devastating Charge Talent will now correctly apply its bonus damage to enemies stunned by Shadow Charge. That was a big one I think we talked about last week. Mm-hmm. Falstad Tailwind's movement speed buff will now correctly be placed on cooldown after taking damage.
This was huge, actually, by the way, because Falstad's win rate actually rose by 6 or 7%.
Yeah,
because this last week because of this. And if you saw bans for Falstad in Hero League or Team League, for some reason you're like, why is Falstad getting banned? This inherently wasn't a terrible bug. It made him a little faster, which made him a little more annoying to catch. The big deal was at level 13 when you took the talent that reduced your cooldowns while your trait was active.
Yeah.
And since your trait was never able to be taken off, you had perma reduced cooldowns.
Oh wow, that would do it.
So that it was a pretty big buff once you hit that 13.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Gazlo rocket turrets now correctly grant allied vision around their placement locations. And Lieutenant Morales, this was an interesting one. Seems like she's had a lot of issues with medevac lately. Fixed an issue which allowed the medevac to move toward and pick up allied heroes on the way to its intended destination. Kind of a cool little bug like that. I could see that being a thing. Like
it's like a meta bus.
Yeah.
just leap on.
Hey, come on, friends.
I like it.
Maybe we'll see a talent in the future. Who knows?
Hey, there's that new Magic School Bus on Netflix, so anything's possible.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting. Let's go ahead and get on into the HGC. All right, TBK, what do we got this week?
Now, before we do this, I just want to throw out a disclaimer. Don't expect an interview every single week. For some reason, I just was able to get these, and it was all grouped together in one big chunk. We probably won't have necessarily another one before BlizzCon happens. We'll try and make some more happen after BlizzCon, of course, because there'll be a lot to talk about, as well as hopefully getting some of those BlizzCon interviews like we did last year. But this was one I really wanted to get in before BlizzCon. This is Kendric Swissh, and he is one of the HGC China casters. He's been doing it with Tetcher, and I wanted to kind of use this to highlight China before we go into BlizzCon, because it is probably one of the least talked about major regions, at least of all heroes, and he's got some really good insight into that, and this will be kind of a good primer going into BlizzCon, so hope you enjoy.
Yeah.
Oh, one more thing before you go. I wasn't able to make this one, so just know I'm not in it.
Baby shower
preparing
things.
for a baby shower.
Okay.
So just don't think I'm just being quiet or something. But hey, advantage to me. I get to sit here and enjoy it like the rest of you guys. So there you go.
But yes, I will say, just kind of stacking with TBK here, I admittedly didn't know a lot about the China region, and there's some certain reasons why, but it's some really good insights. So without further ado, enjoy.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to HGC Talk. This week, we have guest Kendric Swissh. Kendric, thank you so much for joining us to talk a little bit about HGC China and EU.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. It's a big pleasure and a great honor.
We'd love to hear that. So first off, for those who may not know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for the Heroes community?
So yeah, as you said, I go by the name of Kendric Swissh. I've been involved into Heroes of the Storm for quite some time now. It all started in the alpha when I was actually trying to become a pro player myself. Oh boy, that was it's such a long time ago now, and it didn't really go so
different
well.
time.
But, yeah, different time, exactly. It was 2015, and now I've gotten a lot smarter, and I know that I'm not good enough to become a pro. No, but I just really love the game. Like, ever since I started watching streams and watching some footage, I knew I wanted to invest myself into the scene. And these days I'm a caster, streamer, content producer, whatever you want to call me, and I do not regret a single second.
Oh, that's so awesome. And we'll let you guys know at the end where you can find him, because he does a lot of streaming and has some of the coolest streaming backgrounds anybody I've ever seen. So you're one of the primary casters for HGC China, and a lot of people might not know that because honestly, HGC China has not been publicized to the level of Korea, EU, NA. So why don't you give us a little background, tell us a little bit about the region and the teams, just as people probably don't have as good of an idea what the HGC China is.
Sure. I mean, probably the main reason why, there's not as much fuzz around HGC China as there is for the other major regions is because it's not being casted or broadcasted from the official Blizzard channel. So it's not on twitch.tv/Blizz Heroes. It's on my own channel, which is actually pretty cool because my viewership, which is normally I would consider a little bit more casual, they get to experience some hardcore Heroes of the Storm as well. And I'm casting the whole thing with Tetcher, who some of you may know from casting other gigs, like he's doing the European Open Division with Grubby. He's been casting international tournaments like the Mid-Season Brawl. So I'm really enjoying my time with him because he's a fantastic dude. He's a great caster as well. And China is a very cool region in many ways. But the most striking difference compared to other major regions is, of course, the fact that the Chinese teams, they brawl more. They oftentimes don't really care too much whether a fight is going to go well or not. They just take the gamble, they take the risk, and they just go all in. And usually, like, I do not kid you when I tell you that there's on average like 20 plus takedowns per game. It's just a real gong show sometimes.
Wow, that's pretty nuts, and that's a huge stark difference to most of the other regions. So, Greg, let's bring it to you. What do you got?
Yeah, so again, since a lot of people may not be watching China a lot, most of what they see maybe is going to the Heroes of the Storm website, esports, clicking on China and kind of looking at the standings. But it's pretty clear that the format is a little bit different in China than the rest of the regions as far as standings. So kind of how does that work in comparison?
So remember at the midseason brawl this year, there was kind of a new system being introduced, which is called like a double round robin system in the groups phase. That means instead of a best of 3 or a best of 5, there's always going to be a so-called best of 2. So there could be a tie if both teams play 1-1. And then double round robin means, of course, as well that all the teams, they're facing each other twice, or maybe even more often if there's a tiebreaker going on. So we have the exact same system in HCC China, and that results in more games per day since you have shorter series. So instead of just 1 or 2 or 3 matches per day, you normally have at least 4, which is pretty awesome. And then, of course, you have it on 3 days, just like the other major regions. And the cool thing is every team faces each other at least twice. So if there's a real top match in the league, let's say SPT Super Perfect Team versus, back in the past it was E-Star, now they're no longer in the league, but let's say CE, then you can enjoy that twice in just one round. And that's really cool.
Okay. Yeah, and I've always liked kind of the best of 2 series just because I think it can build, because of the ties, it's kind of a really cool storyline to follow as far as the top teams and rivalries. Is there any specific reason why China goes that format when the rest don't, or?
So I think a major difference as well between China and the other regions is that China, as the only major region, is not being operated by Blizzard directly. Blizzard, of course, has the rights to HCC, and they're providing, the background. But the league itself, the studio, the casters, etc., they're all provided by NetEase, which is a Chinese company. And the production is done by Neo TV. So those 2 names are very important when you talk about HCC China. And as such, Blizzard obviously said, you can do your own thing as long as you give us a decent show. And I think that's exactly what happened.
Okay, perfect. TBK.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned the Chinese are a lot more brawly than maybe E or NA. What does the Chinese meta look like then?
So when Tetra and I started casting 3 seasons ago for the first time, we were like, okay, we have no idea what we're getting ourselves into. And the Chinese teams didn't seem to have any idea either, because they were just picking stuff that made no sense. And Tetra and I, like we saw a Toad Zebo, we saw a Twin Blade variant right off the get-go, and Tetra and I was like, okay, so we tried to analyze the drafts and we tried to sound very professional, but when you see a Toad Zebo on Battlefield of Eternity, you just can't stay serious, right? So yeah, that's what happened. Then in the second phase, things got a little bit more, standard after the midseason brawl, especially when E-Star did so admirably well. You could really see how the Chinese teams learned from the other regions and how they tried to implement certain things that worked really well elsewhere. And but still, some trends, like remember when Anubrag was like the go-to warrior to pick. Chinese teams for a long time, they were like, nah, we don't really like him. We're just going to stick to Muradin and I don't know what else did they pick, ETC and Arthas all the time, but Anubrag was completely left out. And when they ended up picking Anubrag, it didn't make sense at all because the comp didn't fit him. And then obviously Anubrag didn't do well. Then they abandoned him again. And Tetra and I, week after week, were like, okay, when will Chinese teams finally start picking up Anubrag? But yeah, that was a pretty funny side story. And now in the current season, they definitely adapted to the international meta. Like no longer, I shouldn't say no longer, but very rarely do you now see those really funny picks that no one else does. I would say right now they're actually a little bit more conservative concerning double support. There's a trend in NA, EU, and Korea that more and more teams are starting to fall off and they're starting to abandon the double support. But China still plays it very, very regularly.
Okay.
Huh. That's really interesting. What are just as an example, what's your favorite like crazy Chinese comp that you can remember that just did way better than you thought it would?
So I remember that one. It was right at the very first play day of the fall season, so the current one that just stopped a few weeks ago. In the first week, first game of the season, actually, for Super Perfect Team, who then turned out to be the champions twice in a row. They played a Cho'Gall Medivh comp on Battlefield of Eternity. And I can't remember what the final hero is, but who really cares, right? You have Medivh and Cho'Gall.
Yeah.
So Tetra and I, we were like, okay, what's going to happen? And it turns out that they just dominated. Nobody could kill the Cho'Gall because he had the Medivh shields. Cho'Gall is really hard to kill if you don't have good counters in the first place. And they just steamrolled over their poor opponents. And that was really awesome.
Yeah, it's so fun to see. Even though it's very circumstantial, it's so fun to see Cho'Gall played at a pro level, just because you don't get to see him hardly ever, and so it's really unique, and he's very powerful in his own right in the right circumstance.
I think so. Like if you draft well around it and you surprise your opponents, I think it can be a really legit strategy.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Greg?
Yeah, well, and still kind of along the meta lines here. So you said they've kind of adopted the international meta or getting more towards that. So are they running the double supports often? Because that kind of, you said they're a brawler meta and like the fights. Yeah. So are there, the kills per match and stuff going down now that they're adopting more of that?
I would say in the current season or in the last season, it definitely went down a little bit, especially when you had two teams who both picked double full support. If you had a Tyrande or a Tassadar in their team, obviously there was a little bit more damage involved. But if you had, let's say, Auriel Uther against Reg or Brightwing, then you could really see how the amount of kills decreased. But I would say so, yeah. Okay. There's a few exceptions in the regions, a few teams that kind of refuse to follow everyone else's example. But the big teams, the best teams, definitely go for a lot of double support still.
Okay. And tell us about some of the top teams here in the Chinese region going to BlizzCon, and how do you think that they're going to stack up against the other regions?
That's a good question. China is always that dark horse, but right now with the top three teams qualifying, and those are Super Perfect Team, CE, and BTG, who's actually a new and upcoming team. Like beyond the game, BTG, they came into HGC China for the very first time last season around. Nobody knew who they are, of course, Tetra and I included. And they just delivered some beautiful games, and it's quite a success story. Like an amateur team qualifying straight up for BlizzCon is pretty dope.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So I would say SBT, of course, one of the biggest obstacles that Chinese teams have had to overcome, of course, is the visa issues. We saw that at Midseason Brawl. We saw it at the Eastern Clash when the Chinese teams, once again, couldn't really fight in their full strength. If, however, they were to play in their full roster with no issues involved whatsoever, I truly think that they could prove to be quite the challenge for many NA, EU, and Korean teams. Especially SPT, in my opinion, looks so strong. Like, they have won HGC China twice in a row right now. They've got outstanding mechanical players like Melody C and Misaka, who are actually world class. Like even if you ask anyone else, like if you ask experts from other regions, they will definitely agree upon the fact that those guys are just really, really good. They also have a huge variety of picks they can choose from hero-wise, so I think their hero pool is really good. CE, they were the champions of the first season, to many people's surprise. I think they are very strong still, but not as strong as SPT. However, they do have a very aggressive playstyle. So aggressive playstyles, they can really work if you catch your opponents off guard. But if they know what's coming, then I find it to be a little bit of a weakness because you're only, banking it all on just one strat. And that's their weakness, I think. So for Beyond the Game, the third seed, I have no idea, to be honest, how well they're going to do. I think against the big names from the other regions, like, let's say, Fnatic, MVP Black, I don't think they're going to stand many chances. However, against the mid-tier teams from either of the other regions, I think they can actually tie it up or maybe even take a lead. So it's going to be very exciting. As I said, it all comes down to the visas, and I'm super excited to see whether this time at BlizzCon, the biggest tournament, we're finally going to see the full power of China unleashed.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it's always such a disappointment when you hear those visa announcements that come out, because it seems like, for the most part, China is the worst affected by that. And it's just one of those things. I don't know what, honestly, super deep into that, what the issues are. We talked about it a few months back on the show, but it's just one of those things where I agree with you. I really want to see the full Chinese power. I don't want to see them having to pick in a sub or two from other teams just because that person could get a visa and the other person couldn't. And now it's not that the player's bad, but there's no synergy there.
Exactly.
Or there's not the synergy from the rest of the season. So,
and for SPT, for example, they actually were hit the worst. They had to play with their manager twice in a row because they apparently weren't even able to find another pro player. So they had to pick the manager. And who can blame the manager for not being able to compete at the highest level, right? Because he's not a player in the first place. NCE, despite the fact they actually had to borrow a player from a different team at the Eastern Clash, they were able to advance all the way to the semifinals regardless. So they took a map of MVP Black there. So you could really see how, despite the fact they had to play with a sub, didn't really cripple them too much, CE that is. So I'm really excited to see the full rosters in action.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Let's just hope this year they all get there because, and I know you were there last year, watching those things live on the BlizzCon stage is it's so different. It's such a different experience than watching it at home. It's just so electric. Everyone's yelling. You look backwards and the place is just packed out, past the where the seating area actually is. It's just so much fun. So having all the regions there in their full strength will be really good. It's just speaking of other regions, you're from the EU region. And so I'm sure you're fairly well acquainted with the EU teams, and we're recording this on Sunday, actually. And as of right now, Team Wish is
they're playing right now,
playing Team Expert for the third and final BlizzCon spot, which is pretty insane. And we talked about this last week. Team Wish is the former Team Zealots that was just picked up by a brand new esports organization, and they're making a run. They just came in from the Crucible this year. So
they could actually be another team that will transcend from that amateur status right into BlizzCon status, right?
Yeah, and that would be crazy. And it's so cool because that's what this HGC league structure has kind of afforded us.
Yeah,
really, to be able to do is to build up this talent a lot. But I'm wondering what your thoughts are from an EU perspective on the EU teams coming in. Do you think now this is going to be a prediction rather than a
right.
no? What do you think, Wish versus Expert, and then what do you think of Dignitas and Fnatic's chances going into this?
So I've got a little bit of weakness for Team Expert because I really love their play style. I really love some of their players. So in the end, with them having much more experience as of late as well to compete at the highest level, I think they're going to take the series. But I don't think it's going to be an easy climb. So I really think it's going to be like a 3-1, 3-2. So Team Wish, I think, definitely has the means to fight back. But overall, I really want to see Team Expert at BlizzCon. I think it would be a really sweet success story for them as well to, slowly but surely climb and claw their way into the top 3 next to the Dignitas and, of course, the Fnatic. So going to be really excited to see that. And Europe in general, I think, is, with one exception, quite hard to predict right now. And I think you all know what that exception is. That's Fnatic, of course. I mean, Fnatic, they have yet to fall. They have been super consistent for quite some time right now. And if you take a look at the European standings, they are like 11-1.
Head and shoulders.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's not even close anymore. And the only series they lost, ironically, was against the Playing Ducks, who have to play in the Crucibles, right? So whenever they played the likes of Dignitas, Liquid, Team Expert, they won by a landslide. And this team, I think, is the big favorite, the team to beat at BlizzCon as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's powerhouse now.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really cool because we shifted from all Korea last year. But then even then Fnatic showed the signs of, overcoming them, beating MVP Black in one of the craziest series I've ever watched. And then now coming in, they're the top dogs, and everybody's going to be kind of looking to beat them.
Yeah. I remember like it was yesterday, like when we were watching it at BlizzCon, and when Fnatic was starting to do really well against MVP Black, nobody could believe their eyes. Everyone was looking at the standings or the results, and they're like, did that just happen? Did they just win a map against MVP Black? Could they actually be winning the series? And the crowd, with Fnatic being one of the few teams left standing in the tournament, the crowd was going wild whenever there was a kill for Fnatic. Like even all the NA fans, like everybody forgot about the NA-EU rivalry, and they were like cheering super hard for the Swedish boys. And that alone was, I think, the coolest thing in the entirety of BlizzCon.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was nuts last year, and the Warhead Junction, Fnatic versus Ballistics,
yes.
nukes everywhere. That boss.
That was insane.
So what's your thoughts on North America, speaking of the rivalry here, and their chances against EU? I didn't check on this to be for sure, but I know last week in our chat, somebody said that Bakery had tweeted Roll20 had really good chances against EU and the rest of the regions.
Yeah, so I think Bakery definitely has a point. Like, I normally do not jump on the bandwagon making fun of NA or saying that they are the worst major region by far. I actually don't think that's true at all. I think there's a lot of talents, as you said, Roll20 with Glorong and Justing, who I value very highly, by the way. Those are definitely all super good players. Like, all they need to make sure right now is, to be consistent. I think that's the biggest problem. Like Roll20 as well in the, past international tournaments, they always had these huge games, but then oftentimes they weren't able to clean out the series and they fell victim to some of the other teams. So I'm not sure about the other teams. Like Team Freedom obviously is a little bit of a new and upcoming team. Mm-hmm. They have yet to prove themselves on an international stage. But they could be a dark horse for sure. Like, they've got nothing to lose. If they win even just a few series, that's already a big success for them. So you can never underestimate those teams who normally just can play whatever they want to. If Fnatic, for example, were to lose a series early on, everybody would be like, oh my God, what's going on? And they will start to feel a lot of pressure, whereas Team Freedom, they can just play like they want to. And I think the third seed is yet to be decided. So let's see if it's going to be Galeforce or Tempestorm.
Yeah, that's a little later today. But that's really an excellent point you make. Some of these teams, their goal may not necessarily be to win BlizzCon.
Yeah.
It may be to win series. And that allows them a lot of freedom to, like you said, play their own game. It's not like every team has the burden of, I must get first place in BlizzCon on their shoulders. Some of these teams haven't been there before at all. So just getting there and now just trying their best is going to be...
Just make the fans proud, Give good games to the fans so they can feel proud of, being an NA fan again.
Yeah, for sure. So switching to just a little more fun discussion before we end, why is Twin Blades variant best variant?
Oh, dude, you've hit my nerve. Yeah, I'm down with the Twin Blade variant whenever I see it. I mean, not only is it the manliest build of them all, because you hear that manly war cry when he splits the sword, when he splits Charlemagne in half. And no, it's actually legit. Like, if you if the enemy team has no blinds, that's the biggest thing you need to make sure of, right? No blinds, okay, that's already pretty good requirement. And then if you have a good support behind you, let's say a Divine Shield or a Cleanse in general, like, you can tear things up, and you're still very tanky. Like, don't get me wrong, of course you also have that hidden potential of sneaking away bosses all by yourself, especially on Warhead. The map is so large, nobody's going to see you in time. It's a legit build. I like it.
I like you.
This is 2 weeks in a row, the variant Twin Blades. John and Bo, all the core guys are just super tilt right now. And yeah, I can't. I'm gonna have to go back in and start playing him now, because I was a Twin Blades guy as soon as he came out, but
there are still very legitimate situations as to when he is actually a very strong pick.
Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, my Colossus Smash win rate is higher than my Taunt win rate right now in Hero League. I'm not even kidding.
Really?
Just because people aren't expecting it?
They're not expecting it. And Colossus Smash just one-shot squishies. Like, if you get those good flanks in and people don't see you coming early enough, then, you jump on a Tyrande, you jump on that Kalthus, and 1, 2, 3 shots, and those guys are gone.
Sure. Yeah. And this is one of those things. If you're gonna go Twin Blades, if you're gonna go Colossus Smash, you communicate with your team so that your team can have a main tank, and they're not counting on you for it. All you people who have been messaging me on Twitter all week. Yes.
Okay. So TBK, quick match. You're Varian. You're the only Varian on the team. What are you doing?
Mostly taunt.
Give in to the temptation, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I do sometimes. Sometimes it works out awesome, and sometimes it does not.
Just need that Tassadar Abathur. But
That's right.
So my last question for you is just, what hero is it you are wanting to see added into the Nexus most, and why?
Ooh, man, I love those questions. I love theory crafting. I love fantasizing about new heroes. But I gotta tell you, as an Alliance fan, I gotta say it's time for a Draenei, right? It's time for the Prophet Valens, the Vindicator Marads, all those good and cool characters that we saw in Worlds of Draenor, that we now see in Legion. I definitely want to see one of those guys show up. Maybe as a priest class, if it's Velen. I think priest is now the only class from World of Warcraft that hasn't really been touched upon on Heroes of the Storm. So a priest, it's time.
Okay. Well, okay. And follow-up question: if we do get a priest,
Gotcha.
do you think we'll see a multi-class?
Yeah. Like, to be honest, how cool would it be if they introduced Anduin and just like his father made him a multi-class hero? Like, that would be insane. Like, make him Shadow cool. as an assassin, or you can go for either, let's say, Discipline, and then you would be like a Tassadar support with a lot of shields, for example, or you go Holy, and then you're just a classic standard healer.
Yeah, that would be an awesome split, to have like a pseudo support, full on support, and then damage.
Yeah,
that'd be
wonderful.
amazing. Excellent. TBK?
Yeah, that's really cool. I really want another multi-class. I don't know. Some people don't like it, but I just love the concept. I love the concept of customizing the character more so when you're in game and figuring stuff out. They need to do a little more work on their end as far as how it works when you queue and matchmaking and stuff, but it's such a great concept. I love it.
It's a really cool concept. I agree. And I talked to Tetra about it. Actually, we were talking about it on one of our China broadcasts as well. What do you guys think of the idea of, let's say, you have your heroic abilities at 10, and depending on which heroic ability you choose, you're going to get different talents starting on 13, 16, and 20. So
I
could customize. You could customize your builds and your role, your class, even further.
Yeah, I really like that. Generic-y up to 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then special ones depending on what you get. It's a little more work on the Blizzard side, of course.
Yeah,
but even if you provided
us
two per, it's only 3 tiers.
Yeah.
Even if you only provided us 2 or 3 per build, that's pretty cool.
Talents, right? Because your role was kind of set in stone, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, lots to think about. BlizzCon's coming up. Who knows? Who knows what we'll end up seeing? I'm sure some really cool stuff.
Oh, I to be honest, I thought, like, when I saw Volskaya Foundry and Junkrat and Ana, I was like, okay, that would have been good BlizzCon material, to be honest. So I have no idea what they're going to show us. That's even bigger than a new map into new heroes.
Yeah, that was kind of our thought, especially after with KT coming out and them talking about potentially slowing down stuff that was coming out in the game as far as heroes. So I'm hoping that we'll still, of course, get some more heroes, maybe a map at BlizzCon, but I'm hoping we're going to get a lot of system updates as well. As far as in-game stuff. So,
yeah, for sure. Well, Kendric, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute blast. Thank you for the insight into HGC China. Do you want to tell people how to find you, how and when to watch those Chinese games? And the VODs, I assume, are on your channel as well.
Sure thing. Like, first of all, thank you guys for having me. Like, it's always cool to talk about Heroes of the Storm with fellow nerds and spread the word about HGC China a little bit. So thank you for inviting me over on the podcast. Really appreciate it. But yeah, as it goes, you can find all the HGC China stuff, the VODs, the live broadcasts on my channel, twitch.tv/Kendric Swissh. I do those broadcasts with Tetra. And the VODs can be found on my Twitch channel as well, but normally they're also being uploaded to the official Heroes of the Storm esports website. So that's heroesofthestorm.com/esports. And then you just click on the China tab and you should be able to find them there. And yeah, on the social medias, you can hit me up at Kendric Swissh on Twitter, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, whatever the cool kids do these days. You can find me there. And yeah, I wish you all a beautiful BlizzCon and see you in the Nexus. Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
All right. So the Kendric Swissh interview. One thing worth mentioning here, if you're not watching the video because we have it spelled out, if you're searching for his channels, that's Swissh with 2 S's, I guess 3, SWISSH. Keep in mind for that.
Confusing people now.
Yeah.
3 S's.
But another excellent interview. A really cool guy to talk to. One of the things I wanted to mention that we actually talked a little bit after the interview that he wished he would have talked about during the interview when it comes to China and the differences and the fact that they do LANs for all their competitions is it's actually held in a mall. I believe he said it was in Shanghai.
Oh.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, so like you have a bunch of people walking around that can kind of just walk up and see what's going on, which is really cool to have it in a public place like that.
Yeah, it's cool. Gets it more exposure for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thought that was a good interview, guys. That was some good stuff. He called you nerds at the end. But I don't know if you picked up on that.
Oh yeah, well he likes Alliance. He's an Alliance player. So take that.
Yeah,
40s.
I don't know how I feel about that.
It was his one shortcoming.
I do want a Draenei in the game though. I'm with him on that. I'm with
Same. It's the only WoW race we don't have yet. So let's get that in there.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, and I loved his idea for multi-class. New talents after 10. Yeah. Sign me up.
For sure. All right, TPK, what do we have else that's going on in HGC currently leading up here to BlizzCon?
Just a few things. We have actually tonight going on the HGC Open Division playoffs that will decide which 2 teams will be playing Good Guys, playing Ducks, Leg Force, and Even in Death. Man, all off the top of my head. So we'll see which 2 Open Division teams from both EU and NA will be fighting against them this weekend. I believe it's Saturday and Sunday. And this will determine whether these teams get kicked out of HGC and the new Open Division teams move in for the next season, or whether they retain their spots. Mm-hmm. So big stuff on the line this weekend. And speaking of playing Ducks, this is just a little topic I wanted to bring up real fast. It seems that Chris on the Playing Ducks team has posted on Twitter that they have decided not to renew their contract with the Playing Ducks going forward, and they will be returning to the name Diamond Skin for the Crucible games because they had not been paid in 4 months.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
That's a little ridiculous that this stuff is still happening.
Yeah.
It's super disappointing, and when these type of things happen, it just puts a really bad name on esports for younger orgs that are trying to get into it, and just for orgs in general. I know there's been a big thing lately with Denial Esports and a bunch of accusations against them for not paying their players. It's just another one of these type of things, and I just really hope we can get past this as an esports community, and we can just get over orgs that don't pay their players.
Yeah.
That have signed contracts with them. Because it's ridiculous.
It's a huge roadblock when it comes to the growth of esports, not only because it makes us look bad, esports look bad, but even think about the impact this has on the players. Not being paid for 4 months affects the way you eat, how you have to live, and you're still trying to compete at the highest level to make it to these tournaments. So that is a huge deal. But I do want to give props and point this out, and it's not for sure yet, but a poster, Lurhand, had asked if there was a chance that we could cheer for Diamond Skin in the Crucible this weekend, so the money would go directly to the players, not the org. Again, has EU Crucible is this weekend, so it hasn't happened yet.
Yes, all the Crucibles this weekend.
Esports Matt responded, they're looking into it, though, as they had mentioned previous, the time frame is really tight. So we don't know if that's going to be an option yet, but keep a lookout for that just in case. So you can cheer on the Diamond Skin, and that'll go directly to the players and not the Playing Ducks which
And this
in
is
turn
and this is
weren't
one of the
I would
things,
like that.
Yeah, and this is one of the things going forward too that maybe Blizzard might have to think about and redo something in their contracts to make sure that cheers are going to the players and not just the org, and they're not getting disseminated at all. That's apparently that's a concern now because
Yeah.
they confirmed that their team hasn't seen any of the cheer money that was cheered for the playing decks. So just wanted to bring that up. It's very unfortunate, and I really hope that we stop seeing instances of this in the near future, especially as we move on to the 2018 season and Blizzard's goal of getting basically all the HGC teams sponsored.
Yes.
Yep. Let's fix this. Let's fix the visas issues you guys were talking about during the interview as well. That'd be another just great step forward.
Those unfortunately are
I know.
not in Blizzard's hands.
It's,
you have
it's
to
a
talk to the
governmental-
government.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not in the US.
call your Congress people
That's
and
not-
talk to them about esports.
That's
Yeah,
not.
it's always so.
That's actually not even United States visa. I don't think necessarily.
I think it
I don't
can
remember if it's
be.
on China's end or
The-
if it might be the country they're traveling
The biggest
to.
thing
so,
is
yeah.
the country they're traveling to. So the whole issue around visas, if you've not heard about it before, is that these are basically young single guys from other countries, and the worry is that they come in and then they stay,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. It's probably worry on both ends because there's nothing necessarily tying them down to China or whatever. And that reasoning, among other things, I'm sure, can sometimes block
Mm-hmm.
players from getting visas from other countries. So that it sucks, but it's the way it
Yeah,
is.
and I'm sure the government just doesn't understand esports as the legitimate reason to travel temporarily and all that. So there's stuff that can be done, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Overwatch
Oh, yeah.
League gonna change things, hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Yeah.
it'll be a big driver
Yeah.
in helping that out. So the esports Heroes Esports site put up a huge article. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll have it linked in the show notes. It's basically a primer for the 2017 HGC finals. Your teams are Dignitas, Beyond the Game from China, MVP Black, Expert, Deadly Kittens, Team Freedom, Red Kenids, Super Perfect Team, L5, CE, also Chinese, Soul Torturers, Roll20 Esports, Tempest, Tempo Storm, Darksided, which actually this is going to be their first big LAN as they beat out Nomia, which is the big name ANZ region. They beat them, I believe, 3-1. I actually was up super late one night and I watched the finals play out. It was really fun, actually. And they beat them out. So brand new guys. One or two of their players, I believe, is from Nomia originally. And I'm excited to see what they can do. And then, of course, Fnatic, the juggernaut.
I love how Fnatic's at the bottom of this list.
And Fnatic.
And last but probably not least, Fnatic.
The whole thing is going to start October 26th, that Thursday, and run Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And this is like the group stages to prep and narrow down the teams a bit before BlizzCon, because BlizzCon's only 2 days. Hint, Blizzard, 3 days, please. Just throwing that out there. I'm sure you've never heard that feedback before. And it will start at 11 a.m. Pacific time on the 26th. They each will play out a double elimination bracket with 2 teams eliminated and 2 moving on to the playoff bracket over the 4 days of the opening week competitions. The cool thing is these opening week games will take place at the new Blizzard Arena in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So
and they're
they'll
going to be visible via the virtual ticket, if I'm not mistaken, too. So
yeah,
just added value to that if you guys are looking at.
If I'm flying out early, maybe I'll go by and see this new Blizzard
You have to be flying
Arena.
out really early. Oh, not to see to see it, not to see the games there. Yeah, you'd have to be really early to see the games in person.
No.
I don't know if they've got an actual seating there or not. Maybe.
Who knows?
Maybe you should go see it and then
report back.
Yeah,
Yeah, scout for us, please.
The casters and commentators for the opening week and BlizzCon main event were also announced Caleris will be back to host with Grubby, J-How, Wolf, Caldor, Trixler, Gilly, Dreadnought, and Skimmy, who is from the ANZ region. You saw him at one of the clashes, I believe. Yeah, I think he was at one of the clashes. A lot of energy, really fun, fresh face to the caster lineup. So I'm excited that they're bringing him over again from that. So again, check out the BlizzCon schedule page for all the info on all the HGC games going on during the actual BlizzCon event. And of course, the schedule also has all the stuff leading up to it.
All right. Well,
cool.
It is time for this.
Hero of the Week.
This sounder, guys. The sounder. I don't know how. We'll work on it. I know
No,
TBK wants me to keep it. I know Multi wants me to keep it.
Classic.
It is classic.
It is vintage Lords of the Storm. All right, so this week's Hero of the Week is, of course, Ana. After she has been live for a week now, we've gotten a chance to play her some more. So we're going to go over a couple things here to, if you haven't played her, hopefully get you started off on a right build, give you a few options, and just talk about our thoughts a little bit here. And before we start, TBK, I know you have been enjoying kind of a grenade type setup here.
Yeah, so this is interesting. We're gonna kind of go over two things. There's two main builds to really go with her, and they're situational depending on where you find yourself at. One of the builds is better in general if you find yourself as a solo support, because it allows you to fix with quests some of the weaknesses we talked about the other week, like being in the middle of team fights and other heroes getting in the way of the hero you're trying to heal.
Mm-hmm.
This build can kind of mitigate that some. On the other side of things, you have more of a utility type build that is very strong when you're double supporting with somebody else, that allows you to go a little more damage focused and a little more utility focused to help boost the other healer's heals, as well as affect more enemies with debuffs and such.
All right.
So we'll kind of run through both of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And before we hop into the talent picks, real quick, go through trait and abilities. Combat trait Shrike. Basic attacks apply a dose to non-structure enemies, dealing additional 44 damage over 5 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Q, Healing Dart. Fire a dart which heals the first allied hero hit for 250. Biotic Grenade on W, 50 mana, 16-second cooldown. Toss a grenade at the target area. Allied heroes hit are healed for 175 health and receive 25% increased healing for 4 seconds. Enemies take 60 damage and receive 100% less healing for 2 seconds. And E, Sleep Dart, 50 mana, 14-second cooldown. Fire a dart that puts the first enemy hero to hit to sleep, rendering them unable to act for 3 seconds. Sleep's effect end instantly if the target takes damage after the first half second. Cannot be used on vehicles, worth mentioning. Heroic abilities, Nano Boost, 40 mana, 50-second cooldown, instantly boost an allied hero, restoring 200 mana. For the next 8 seconds, they gain 30% spell power, and their basic ability cooldowns recharge 150% faster. Cannot be used on herself. And Eye of Horus, 75 mana, 60-second cooldown. Assume a sniping position, gaining the ability to fire up to 8 specialized rounds with unlimited range. Rounds hit the first allied or enemy hero or enemy structure in their path. Allies are healed for 300, and enemies are damaged for 175. Deals 50% less damage to structures. And you are unable to move while Eye of Horus is active. All right. So, let's hop into the build here. So, level 1, TBK, solo support, since this is what people are going to find themselves in most of the time in quick match.
Yeah, if you're quick matching. And the level 1 for her kind of sets the stage for the rest of the game, right? These are very much kind of the trendsetter talents from the outset. So if you find yourself solo supporting, piercing darts is a lot of times what you're going to lean towards. And this is a quest for Sleep Dart. And it's not necessarily the easiest quest in the world to finish, because Sleep Dart is a fairly slow projectile, and it also is on a fairly long cooldown. I mean, you got 14 seconds in between each. So the quest is you hit heroes with Sleep Dart. After you hit 10, Sleep Dart will now hit 2 heroes, and its range is increased by 50%. So this makes Sleep Dart piercing. Now, once you hit 20 heroes with Sleep Dart, and it does start to go a little faster after you get that first 10, Healing Dart will now hit 2 heroes, and its range is increased by 50%. So 20 is really the big thing, because this now, or once you hit that 20, that now enables you to heal somebody even though somebody else is in the way. And that's one of, like I was saying, her big weaknesses is in hectic fights, or when several of you are together, sometimes it can be very hard to target the person you actually want to hit with healing. This allows you to overcome that weakness somewhat and just aim towards the person you want. And if somebody gets in the way, no big deal.
Free healing even. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and you get some free extra healing. So her healing does jump up quite a bit. If you are in a duo support comp, then you can go for the detachable box magazine, which is a little more her damage thing. But if you want to go more utility, and this is incredibly strong, grenade calibration. The quest for this is to hit enemy heroes with biotic grenade. After you hit 10 heroes, biotic grenade does 75% more damage per allied and enemy hero hit, which is pretty cool. It's extra AoE damage, right? But after you hit 20, and this is the big one, biotic grenade's duration on allies is increased from 4 seconds to 12 seconds, and its healing radius is increased by 100%. So not only do you get this much bigger Q healing radius, or this W healing radius, now your allies are receiving that 25% increased healing for 12 seconds.
Yep, and keep in mind that's not just healing.
That's huge.
Yeah, I was just about to say that's not just healing from your sources. That's from any other source. I just played a game tonight with a couple of my buddies, actually some real life buddies, Kiva and Josh. Shout out to you guys. And so we tried Ana and Lucio just to, I don't know, Overwatch supports. It made sense. And man, like there was no way I was keeping up with that Lucio's healing numbers, because he was benefiting so much from the biotic grenade. So that extra time, I had not fully completed that, I don't think, at that point, but that would be insane.
Mm-hmm. And again, keep in mind, if you're solo, you may get something out of the damage. And if you're for some reason needing wave clear, which Ana is not good at, and you still benefit from the 4 to 12 seconds, but it is much, much better when you have that other support, no matter who they are. Although she does pair with some better than others. All right. And
I will say, just offhand, you talked a little bit about her trait, and it, you stack the dosage up. I was a little disappointed that you only see the dosage indicator on heroes.
Yeah. Because
the dosage does stack up on minions and mercenaries and bosses and such too. Right. And you have no way of seeing how many doses you have stacked on them. There's just no indicator at all. And so that was a little disappointing. I would have liked to see it at least on mercs or catapults or bosses a little more so than maybe not every minion. That's a lot of little dots to keep track of, but still it'd be kind of, and I mean, honestly, you could even do it on minions, because you could only have it on so many before it fell off. So it's not going to be like it's going to overload your screen with dots. I would like to see that a little more, because it's nice to have on heroes, but it feels a little lacking when it is actually doing something on mercs and minions and bosses and stuff, but you can't see.
Yeah. Good point. Multi, level 4. What are we going with if you are solo?
So level 4, is that the airstrike?
Yes. No, overdose.
Overdose. Okay, so overdose is reading as if hitting enemies with sleep darts and biotic grenade applies 2 doses. So it's just some free doses there. And let's see here. So Ana, just in general, from a lore standpoint, is a kind of an advanced doctor of sorts. She's going out in the field and applying these doses and that sort of thing in combat. I like to kind of pretend, because of work and I'm a nerdy guy, that actually as she's applying these doses, her gun is automatically implementing and uploading that data into an electronic medical record where she can focus on patient safety. But otherwise, so that's overdose. So the other one we're going to shout out here is airstrike, which is definitely interesting. You can activate this to use biotic grenade with a 200% increased range, but grenades thrown this way take 4 seconds to land, which seems interesting. It doesn't seem, obviously you wouldn't use it every time, of course. Obviously, if they're in range, you just throw it normally. But, this is all kind of supplemented by the fact that there's a passive on here where it's just flat out reduced biotic grenade cooldown by 4 seconds. So you can never really go wrong with that either. Maybe this kind of speaks to her talent diversity in general and how good it is. But I do want to shout out aim down sights as well, at least just as an interesting concept, because this is that one where you can activate the Shrike. So you can click your D key there. Well, maybe not click. Maybe you should actually type it out. And then you can activate it to increase your vision radius by 100% and basic attack range by 2, but reduces your movement speed by 20. So you kind of become like this almost, it's certainly a weaker Sergeant Hammer, but it's the same idea that you're moving slower and you're getting extra range on your auto attacks, but super great for harassing and all kinds of stuff. So it's definitely fun to play with. But honestly, this is the kind of tier where you almost can't really go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
the main thing is the airstrike. Whenever you have that double support, the 4 second cooldown reduction is huge for getting 100% healing increase, especially after you get the 12 seconds with your other support. That's just a crazy amount of healing.
So faster to complete grenade calibration.
Yeah.
Also true.
Well, that's really one of the big things that'll just get you to that quest faster. Because it is a 16-second cooldown, so making it a 12-second cooldown is much better and actually drops it below the cooldown of your sleep dart, which is super nice. And then once you have that quest completed, airstrike becomes much more interesting because you can drop that on, say you're running to a boss or something, your other support is there, and you just drop that down. It takes a few seconds to land, but by the time you get there, boom, big old range. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't necessarily use the airstrike a ton. I mainly take that when I take it for the 4 second cooldown reduction, because it's just that big of a difference.
Real good.
It really is.
All right, level 7 here. We're going with Mind Numbing Agent. Every dose a hero has reduces their spell power by 15%. So this is awesome, especially stacking with Overdose, where each basic attack applies 2 doses or ability.
You mean each sleep dart and biotic grenade?
Yes,
not each.
That's what I meant.
Basic attack, yeah.
Well, each damaging basic ability. Yes, not. Wait.
Sleep dart and biotic grenade, if you take overdose, will apply 2 doses.
Yes.
Now.
Yes.
Right. Because they don't apply
auto attacks.
Any doses. Yeah, auto attacks don't apply extra doses.
Correct.
With overdose. Just the sleep dart and the biotic grenade.
Mm-hmm. So this is really good. Obviously 15%. You can get that up to 5. You can get that on multiple enemies. For the back line, this is what you're going to go a majority of the time. If they have, for some reason, a lot of auto attack and you don't have a lot of blinds, there is temporary blindness where after the sleeping darts effects wear off, they're blinded for 2 seconds. And then I kind of feel like they ran out of ideas on this talent tree. Like, there's Debilitating Dart, where you activate to fire dart, which reduces the damage dealt by the first enemy hero it hits by 50% for 4 seconds. Which is kind of, if you're going to do that, you might as well go Mind Numbing Agent, and that's their auto attack. But then you would go the blind. I guess the good thing about this is it adds an extra ability that you can use, but just go Mind Numbing Agent.
I think it's their answer to Shrink Ray, like making a different Shrink Ray, but it's got nothing on Shrink Ray itself.
Well, yeah, and compared to the other 2 talents in this tree, it's
yeah. And if you think about it, there are some heroes that a lot of their damage comes from auto attacks. But if you look at it, other than Samuro, every single hero has ability power,
Right?
spell
That's
power.
how I think of it.
Yeah.
Because auto attacks are your just basic attacks, and all abilities are spell power. As far as I understand it.
Yeah.
And so you are potentially reducing any of your almost all the little abilities that the enemy heroes click by potentially up to 75% damage reduction. That is freaking huge. That is absolutely insane. And there's talents you can get later that let you stack that mind-numbing agent even faster. So just in general, this talent just stands out to me as a must-take, because no matter who you hit, even if you're hitting Vala, that means you're reducing multi-shot damage. That means you're reducing
Hungering Arrow
damage, Rain of Vengeance damage.
Even
like
presumably strafe as well.
Presumably strafe.
I can't imagine.
Well, even Butcher, it reduces Q, his charge, and then I imagine it would affect the amount of healing he gets back from what is his W?
And Blast Furnace.
His march. Yeah. And so
It's just good. It's a good ability.
I don't know exactly what is all classified as what. I'm pretty sure that any just regular auto attack type things, like, and I call it Samuro because he's one of the very few that has no like ability powered stuff other than his whirlwind ultimate, but because all of his other stuff buff his auto attacks. But I mean, it's just such a huge range of abilities. If every ability or most abilities do mean spell power, then you're getting value pretty much on anybody that you're hitting with that talent.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the one I picked.
TBK, level 10.
We're gonna go Nano Boost.
Surprise!
There's a lot of reasons for this. First off, any character with like just abilities, this is gonna
is all of them.
Is all of them is gonna do good stuff for. You restore 200 mana, which is amazing, especially for mages. There's a few characters who wouldn't benefit from that, but most characters will benefit from getting mana restored. And then for 8 seconds, 30 spell power, so 30% extra damage from your abilities. And then their basic ability cooldowns, so QWE, recharge 150% faster. And that's good on a lot of heroes, even if they don't necessarily use mana. Even so, there's a lot of really good stuff in there. My only complaint with Nano Boost is that it is freaking hard to see.
Right.
And it is hard to tell when it is active on you. I would love to get a nice sound effect, because let's just go Stim Drone, right? That's the closest comparison for your auto attackers. That one does a sounds just like that. And you get this like crazy green flashy thing going on your character. Whereas Nano Boost, you get a few little lightning things that are just kind of rolling around. Very easy to miss during battle, or very easy to miss even when I just throw it on somebody as we're expecting to engage and they just kind of stand around waiting. It's like, dude, start casting your spells. get some value out of this thing. So I'd love to see that used a little more. Eye of Horus is interesting. The sucky thing is you're not able to move.
Well, yeah.
And so if you don't position well, or if they've got dive or something, that can put you in a really bad spot. It's cool that it's got unlimited range. It's cool that it does damage or healing. That's kind of nice at the same time. But I would say compared to Nano Boost, it's just extremely situational.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, another reason to take Nano Boost, in my opinion, is just because Eye of Horus is so weird. You're right. I mean, the global functionality is probably the coolest thing of it. But when you're standing still, it kind of reminds me of Nazebo's Slappy Ghost or like Rain of Destruction on Gul'dan, and that you really are very vulnerable. And on top of that, like, think about what you're doing when you're unloading Eye of Horus rounds. you're trying to either heal your teammates or do damage to the enemy, right? You can do all that in a regular group fight. Like, you could just step up and be doing those things with your Q and your auto attacks. So, like, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely cool. And from like a just fantasy standpoint, sniping people across the entire map, super fun. But, you know, I definitely took it the first several times I played Ana because I just wanted to try it out. Sounded like fun. And it is. But ever since I've really started taking Nano Boost consistently, I've not gone back. I find that even heroes that you wouldn't think would get much value out of it still can. I mean, even like, think about Vala. There's one that has a couple spells and would benefit from just having reduced cooldowns and that sort of thing. So, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'd be interested to see if they flesh Eye of Horus out in any other ways, because it is fun. I don't know. It's not for me at this point.
It's honestly what I would like to see with Eye of Horus, and this is just my opinion, is it be more of a damaging ult. It doesn't do a ton of damage to enemy heroes. So instead of healing at all, I would like to see it maybe be, and if you need to take away the global range, just make this really long range, fine. But like a high damaging possible, like, I don't know, like explosive round or something with like a small AoE area, and maybe give it 4 charges instead of 8. But just like high damage. That way, you know, if you are
basically
running,
build in the level 20 to it.
Well, see, I don't take it that much, which is why I don't know. Ballistic explodes upon impacting a hero. So that's still not a ton of damage. Then you're getting healing and damage effects, but I don't know and I say that with like the duo support meta in mind, which I shouldn't do because I don't want that. But you know, more damage would be nice because she doesn't do much. And I don't want to have to wait till level 20 to get that utility from
Fair
it.
point.
I don't know. Multi level 13.
Okay, so level 13 on this one, because this is kind of the just totally versatile tier here, we're leaving it up as totally situational. So let's go through what's in 13. First of all, Speed Serum. Healing Dart grants 25% movement speed to affected heroes for 1.5 seconds. I mean, just if you're going for just a general one that you can never really go wrong with, this is here. I mean, you'll get value out of it as long as you hit any Qs in the whole game, which if you're not hitting your Qs, you know, pro tip, maybe pick another hero. We've got Purifying Darts as the next one. Healing Dart removes roots and slows for the target and heals for 20% more when doing so. So this one, as well as the next one, are kind of, you're looking at the enemy comp and trying to decide whether or not you get much value out of it. But I find them super interesting because it's kind of like a new way of doing cleanse in a sense, but you get to choose what types of CC you're countering, and you're doing it with one of your abilities as opposed to just a regular like clickable option. So like I said, that one plus Smelling Salts is the other cleanse replacement. Healing Dart removes stuns from the target and grants them 50 armor for 2 seconds when doing so. So again, I mean, it's obvious how those two are situational based on the enemy comp. And then, I mean, honestly, Speed Serum, that's one where you could, like, if you weren't super confident in your ability to land the Qs in the proper targets to clear those CCs, then obviously you just can't go wrong with Speed Serum. I'd say you'd get more just overall value across the entire course of a game out of Speed Serum. It's just that these other two can be the group fight changers, the game deciders. And so, I mean, it's up to you to just navigate the three and pick what's relevant and then try to execute it best you can.
I would personally say, and if this is for somebody who you're just picking up on not used to her healing and stuff yet, avoid Speed Serum. The reason I say that, it can make them, if that's somebody you're trying to heal rapidly with shots, it can possibly make that a little harder because now they're moving 25% faster, even though it is only for 1.5 seconds.
They juke you on your next shot faster.
I'm going to counterpoint you and say Speed Serum is awesome because it can enable some things that normally aren't enableable, which is really interesting. So we've got a lot of, especially tanks in the game right now, whose weakness is initiation. And things like this, especially because, yes, it's only 1.5 seconds of extra speed, but your healing dart is like, what, a 2 or 3 second cooldown? It's super short. And so this can enable, for example, a Garrosh, a Johanna, an Arthas that don't innately have speed or initiate to become much more speedy / initiate.
Yeah, but if you're looking to do that, there's already an Overwatch support for you, and his name is Lucio.
Well, and that's why I say, like, if you're just picking up Ana, because it can make him harder. And I want to say it doesn't have it listed on Heroes Fire. I want to say it's a second cooldown. It might be a 1.5 seconds, but I'm pretty sure, because I've taken this, that I have felt the effects of missing because they're still sped up. But I don't know for sure. So, but
Healing Dart is a very low cooldown.
it is.
Yeah,
It's really quick.
Super fun too.
But pretty much the other team is almost bound to always have roots, slows, or stuns, which is good. But it can,
Sure.
chase down stuff, initiation. It's always good.
Can I say it was super weird to get used to healing with her because I'm shooting my own people.
It is
but
weird.
then I'm still having to use abilities that shoot other people.
It's weird and challenging because you have to focus
Yeah.
on that the whole time. And you really, I mean, sometimes it's tough to just be focusing on your auto attacking, stutter stepping, and then often just throwing shots over your own shoulder to heal people behind you or to the side. It's not easy.
Well,
I'm with you there.
Think about how focused she has to be on which ammo she's loading, because one mistake, it's like,
Right.
sorry, Garrosh, I just shot you in the back of the head with my wrong ammo.
Now you're
Now
sleeping.
you're dead, or you're sleeping. Yeah, that's dangerous.
That is challenging. She is the best sniper in the world. That's all there's to it.
Yep, that's true.
Level 16 here, we're going concentrated doses. This increases healing darts healing by 10% for each dose active on enemy heroes. So again, you can get a lot of doses on a lot of heroes, especially depending on which builds you're doing, and that increases healing by quite a bit. And by quite a bit, I mean a lot. A darn
It's a
lot.
huge healing boost at level 16 when you take that.
And especially this stacks well with piercing darts and all
Right.
the goodies. All right, level 20 TBK, what are we going with?
There's a few different ones that are kind of interesting. I'm gonna screw this word. Somnolent.
Somnolent. I'm gonna YouTube it. But
Somnolent.
Somnolent
Whatever.
sounds medical, so I'm gonna say
Yeah,
somnolent.
it just okay.
Sure.
Whatever that is, it's that kind of doses where upon stacking 5 doses, heroes are put to sleep for 2 seconds. That's pretty cool. It's just like an auto sleep whenever you get those 5 auto attacks off, or if you have that overdose talent, if you hit them with a biotic grenade and get them, or sleep dart and get them 2 doses already. So that's a nice thing to have. One that I really like actually is dynamic shooting, and that's basic attacks increase attack speed by 10% for up to 4 seconds, up to 100%. And talk about stacking things fast. This allows you to stack your doses extremely quickly, and you can get a ton of value not only off that poison damage that you're doing with that, but off of your concentrated doses at level 16 too, where your healing dart is now being increased by a lot for all these doses that you're getting on people extremely quickly.
Yep.
And it's fun. You get to auto attack more. By the way, it is somnolent.
Somnolent? Okay. I probably said it right at some point. And the other one you can get if you're it's kind of weird. It's a weird situation. I was about to say, if your mage is an idiot and is in the front line all the time, give him a nano infusion and he will now heal himself for 50% of the damage he's dealing for 8 seconds.
Well, I mean, that works. It doesn't have to be a mage.
It works for anybody who's
Gray
got
Mane in
it,
wolf
yeah.
form would be great.
That's true.
Some really cool stuff. And hey, you know what? If you do want those exploding ballistic rounds, well, you can go ballistic advantage if you and I, of
That's
course.
right.
There you go.
Yep, there you go.
Live that dream.
All right. So that's going to do it as far as talents. Now let's talk about some tips, tricks from your week playing here or her here 2 weeks, including PTR. I personally, I think she's super fun to play. I don't think she really fits my play style, especially because I'm playing a lot of quick match and Hero League stuff lately. So Hero League wouldn't be bad, but quick match, the solo support, she's not super fun as a solo support. It's kind of frustrating. That's why I was looking for people earlier to play. But her kit's really nice. Just really tough to play. I don't know. What's your opinions on her? TBK.
Yeah, I think she thrives much more in a double support scenario. Her biggest weakness is that she can barely heal herself, and that's it. I mean, yeah, no escapes either. But it's really sucky when you can't heal yourself too. She can throw a grenade on herself, but her grenade does not heal for that much, honestly. Most of her big healing is going to come from her Q or from her Q empowered by her W, and you can't Q yourself. I mean, I guess you could like pull your rifle back and shoot yourself in the foot. Yeah, but Blizzard doesn't let you do that. So I think that's why she's got a lot of utility. She's got some damage she can put out. So I think she just, to me, shouts duo support comp. One of her biggest things that I have mixed success with personally, but I've seen people have mixed success with, the timing of her grenade, and this is one of the reasons grenade builds can be so good, is so crucial because you are literally reducing enemy healing by 100%.
Get that ancestral
for 2 seconds. You can negate so much healing with that grenade. She's actually, I found, as I've been playing a lot more Sonya recently, an incredible Sonya counter, because she can shut down the complete Sonya healing from Whirlwind or from auto attacks if you went Warpaint completely with her grenade, which is Sonya, especially post 13 and 20 before you get your shield and your hardened shield, can make you die very quickly if the enemy team is focusing you. So it's just another nice counter. And for auto attacker heroes too, any hero that heals a lot from attacks or gets that type of thing, she can counter extremely well. So smart use of your grenade, and especially making smart use of it if you end up going the talent that reduces the cooldown for it, can be extremely strong in team fights and such.
Yeah, I actually played up against a Rhaegar earlier today, and I was wanting to interrupt the ancestral, but I wasn't patient enough to make sure I had that thing up on cooldown for that when that was going off. So if you do go up against a Rhaegar, be patient with your grenade.
Well, and that's the trick, though. Yeah, kind of my tip ties into this as well. I mean, obviously the grenades can be used to bolster your own healing as well. And I find myself, just because, like, when I'm playing her, I think of myself as a healer more than a harasser and that sort of thing. I need to work on both, because you really do need to be able to focus on both at any given time while playing her. I find myself doing a lot of grenades and then getting the bonus healing out of my team and benefiting from that. If you do that, by the way, obviously just make sure you're getting some value out of it. The base time on it is 4 seconds, which is enough time to get a couple shots in. So the timing on that, if you're just using it to help sustain in the lane, would be, grenade shot, wait a couple seconds, get your next shot. But, honestly, with you guys talking about this too, using it as that 100% full-on Mortal Strike functionality of getting on an enemy team, I need to play around with that a little bit more too, because you're right, it's shutting down self-healing, burst healing most specifically, but I also think about, teams that are relying on that Morales beam to be holding someone up. If you just shut off that stream, something crazy could happen there. So yeah, my general tips on her though are just, again, I mean, I think why she's challenging is because you've got so much to think about at every given time, including your positioning, not overextending, because again, you don't really have any escapes. You're trying to land your auto attacks on one target sometimes, your Q on another, and the sleep dart on sometimes an entirely other target, depending on how the group fight's shaken out. That sleep dart, by the way, is in its own sense a damage mitigator. So, I mean, if you have an escape, I guess it's that you can throw it on the Illidan, put him to sleep, and then just step out of the way. And I've found myself in group fights too, like sometimes if the you-know-what is actually truly hitting the fan, I'll throw one just into the fray anyway, like try to hit a backline guy, because even if it stops that Nazebo from taking those 2 steps up where he would have otherwise landed his zombie wall and locked me in and maybe killed me, then that was worth it, I think. So, again, I mean, you take all that, you add the other talents, you add Nano Boost. There's just so much to think about in this hero. And if that daunts you a little bit, like if you were just in love with Ana and you desperately needed to try her, get in, do it. I think you can do it. But if she just doesn't fully seem like your cup of tea, I don't give this caveat to a lot of heroes, but I'll say she is a little on the challenging side, in my opinion. And there's other heroes that can do at least some of the things that she does fairly well too. And you don't have to pick her. It's up to you.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. She definitely is one of the higher, if not the highest skill capped support that we have. I mean, the next closest we have as far as, skill shot healing would be Uther's Wave of Light, I think.
Sure.
So for this, all 3 of her abilities are skill shots, which are not easy. They're really thin lines.
And there's nothing worse than missing multiple cues. Like, you just feel terrible. And
so
the front team
frustrating.
sees it.
I was playing with Naraki earlier, who's from Brazil, and we ended up playing on a Brazil server. So my ping was like 120 to going all the way up to 180, which is too much for playing Ana. And we had a Vala on our team that I missed like 2 or 3 times in a row because they're moving, and I was dealing with the lag. And then they stood still, and I missed 2 more times.
Oh no!
While they were standing still, so it was a little rough. I blame it on the ping. But lastly, I guess my tip here that I would give would also have to do with sleep dart here, and that is especially quick match things like that. Communicate with your team early on, just to tell them to be aware of like chasing situations or catching somebody alone. That to not immediately attack whenever you're getting the sleep dart off, because if they do, sleep dart doesn't really do much. You may still get that kill, but probably not. If they are looking for it, they're asleep. You can surround, get body blocks, and that's a secured kill. So communication is also really important with her.
I want to say one more thing about team communication, if that's cool. So Nano Boost as well. A trick that I've found that I was doing is to communicate to your team which person in the group fight you're typically dropping it on. Like I had a game where there was a Li Ming and a Nazebo, and either seems great, right? But I actually, before I hit 10, I tabbed over and I checked things like siege damage, hero damage. The Nazebo was doing much better than the Li Ming in general, and just generally had good positioning and stuff. So I just flat out told him. I typed in the chat, I was like, these are mostly for the Nazebo, and then he took it and rocked with it. So it's just something else you can think about.
And you can even say, pre-game, like, Vala, I'm going to, when I ping you, go nuts. When I ping you, that's when I pop a Nano Boost on you. TBK, any last tips?
I think you guys covered it pretty well. It's more just getting used to it and try not to feel too embarrassed if you miss too many shots in a row.
So obvious.
Because it really does feel terrible. Because everybody can see you missing, not just the enemy team, but your allies too. And it's just, once I hit like 3 missed or something, and they're just like walking around right in front of me, just up and down, it's just kind of like, okay, take a breath.
Hey, they can juke you though. That is a real thing.
It is a real thing.
You just you picture your teammates, even though they're probably really upset at some points. I just picture them. It's like the I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, exactly.
While they're walking back and forth, it's like, come on, buddy, I know you got this. You got this. I know. And it's just like, oh man, come on. All right, so that's gonna do it for the Ana Hero of the Week. Let us know what you think. If you've tried her out, if you've had any success as far as solo supporting, what's your tips, tricks, things for that? Let's go on to community content shout out this week. TBK.
So a really fun one this week, actually. Some dude on Reddit whose name is Umbris Mortis. What a great name. Has gone into try mode and tested the level 20 boss soloing ability of every hero, the build for it, and how long it actually takes to solo. And it's just really funny to look through. Surprisingly enough, and this is with a fully stacked monstrosity, but Abathur solos bosses fastest.
Really?
Fully stacked monstrosity.
With the monstrosity, yeah.
Yeah, fully stacked. Those are fully stacked monstrosities, extremely strong. But it is funny to see some of the heroes that can actually do the boss soloing in some like 120 seconds or just ridiculous times that you would never ever want to actually do. But it's interesting.
This is helpful, I think. I mean,
it's
just to see
really
the
kind
time
of cool.
differences. Flat out see the ones where it's not possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lucio can do it. Just takes him 195 seconds and lots of juking.
Hey, the enemy team would never see that coming. Like, all right, I see all their
It's
damage.
true.
Where's their support at? Is he doing boss? Nah.
If you had the
Lily
time
as well.
if you had the time to wait and just be like, okay, guys, be without a healer for like 3 minutes. Okay, post level 20. That's no biggie, right? Yeah, so that's fun. And then, of course, this week, all the Calm Before the Storm stuff was released. We have times, we have dates. And so there's a nice little tweet. Thist actually made these for all the panels.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you to Thist for making all those. November 2nd, at the Hilton Anaheim, 8:30 to 9:45 p.m. Pacific time is the Heroes of the Storm panel, and that's the one I will be participating in. And Greg, you're participating in the podcast panel at the same Calm Before the Storm area. Do you know what time that is off the top of your head?
Yeah, so that's led by Pat Crane and Dustin Turley. That's going to be from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Pacific on November 2nd.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So right before the Heroes panel, actually. So come a little early, watch the podcasting panel that Greg's on, and then stay for the Heroes panel.
Yeah.
Seems reasonable.
Super easy. And we'll be hanging out. Both of us will be hanging out at Calm Before the Storm for a while that night. If you see us, just come say hi.
Mm-hmm.
Love to meet you.
All right. So we have some emails this week. I think we're only going to be able to get to one that we didn't get to last week, and then we'll have to get to the others coming down the line here. So all right, Multi, we got a question here from Naraki.
I feel like we already mentioned Naraki once this episode, if I'm not quite so mistaken there. But yes, this question from Naraki, actually, it was part of a somewhat long posted again there. But this second point we want to touch on here. So here's starting from the top of this part. I would like to propose a thought experiment here. Overwatch blew up when it launched, more so than even Blizzard imagined, I believe. It brought in a whole new army of people who had never had any interest in Blizzard or any of their games. And now Blizzard is obviously trying to capitalize on this. Case in point, the Overwatch year, the heroes of the Overwatch, as I have dubbed it. Ever since 2.0, Blizzard has been trying their darndest to bring in that new army of fans into their least popular game. And I say this with quite the heavy heart, believe me. I don't know about that, but the 2.0 even was a glorified Overwatch expansion, and now all the fanfare they had with Gamescom and the insanely weighted, insert all of his titles here, Kel'Thuzad has been shut down with an absurdly huge announcement. I assume it's referring to the Volskaya, etc. While I get why Blizzard would try to capitalize on Overwatch's success, I wonder if going this hard on it won't make more bad than good, at least in the short term. The mobility creep problems most of the Overwatch characters introduced are huge, and they got their chance at a map in the case of Hanamura and blew it, and now are already getting another one. All the while, Warcraft doesn't even have a single map in the game. The most it has is the Headless Horseman and Towers. But most of all, I don't think the crossover between a team-based first-person shooter and a MOBA is that big, especially to someone that never cared about Blizzard before. So this is actually something Naraki, I was actually thinking about some as well. So this weekend I'm going to be hanging out with a couple of the guys from, well, Tank Zord from the Cavalry podcast. We've got one of our listeners, Waffle Liquor, in town, and then like Blaze and Bob from Watchpoint Radio and that sort of thing are going to be going out to this thing as well. If you guys want to come too, up down Friday night, yeah, you in? Maybe
Me? I'm working.
Yeah. What? Okay. Whatever. We'll figure it out. Anyway, the point is, Waffle's one of the listeners over there, and I haven't seen him around over here on this side. So to me, he's an example of an Overwatch fan who never quite came over to Heroes. So on Friday, I'm going to be confronting him about this, of course. But I think that that's kind of true in general. So, I mean, it is true. In my opinion, Overwatch is about as close to a MOBA as you can get with a first-person shooter, in that you have, team comps that include tanks, healers, some other types of supports, abilities, just in general, ultimates, for crying out loud, right? So there's definitely some crossover there for me. And because of that, we see some of the characters in Heroes having just good crossover in terms of how their kits line up there as well. So I think that the crossover for me, anyway, works fairly well. But I do think Naraki's right in that for some folks it just doesn't. And for those, I really just think that they're more interested in shooters than MOBAs as a genre. And I think that's okay. I mean, Hearthstone's not for everybody. And despite the fact that I constantly try to pressure you guys into it, it's just a genre preference thing, in my opinion. Now, I will say there is some merit to what Naraki's saying here, though, regarding the Overwatch year of Heroes of the Overwatch. I've kind of been building up in my mind as well the kind of concern that BlizzCon itself might be super Overwatch focused too, because of this. And it's true. I mean, when even this event came out for Volskaya, I might have liked to have had the map and an Overwatch hero, but then something a little bit more diverse than just two back-to-back Overwatch heroes, even though I like these and I like Ana. But I mean, I'm with him in that I'm worried that they're a little overdosing on Overwatch at times. But at the same time, we talked about this in previous weeks, but since we got this huge push of Overwatch now, yet BlizzCon, presumably if there's multiple heroes launched, maybe there's an Overwatch character in there too, but I think it vastly decreases the chances of it being super Overwatch focused there. And then in that way, maybe Heroes is going to have its way of toning down the Overwatchiness of BlizzCon. So I don't know. I feel like I've talked forever. What do you guys think?
You have talked a while. Oh, I mean about the.
It's.
Yes,
I love you.
Oh, my foot's tangled.
thanks.
Okay. So year of the Overwatch, I think, yes, they're trying to pull some people in. However, I also think they know that MOBAs aren't for everyone by any means, but it's still good to get people in to try things out. But it's not like they're just doing this for Heroes. They've been doing this with all their games as far as crossovers. Yeah, there's been a lot of Overwatch heroes released as of late, with Lucio and now getting 2 more. But still, there's, Overwatch is a smaller universe, so this isn't something that's going to be going on for a long time. The characters, I think they're excited about getting them in game just because they seem to cross over fairly well. And it may be something, I think it might be easier in some circumstances, not all, to get these heroes finalized. And again, it's not like they have an order to where they know exactly who the next 16 heroes are in order that are coming out. They've talked several times about, they have a list that they're working on, but it's, whenever things line up, it's going to line up. So maybe they had 2 done, and they've been working on Volskaya, and bam, now we have an event. Who knows? But I just personally don't mind it. I mean, we have more Diablo characters in the game than Overwatch, and we have 2 Diablo maps. So we only have Volskaya Foundries right now. I would love to see a World of Warcraft map in the game.
For sure.
Hopefully we'll get that at BlizzCon. But I also understand why that's taking a long time, because whenever they announce a Warcraft map, there are going to be a ton of people super happy about whatever map it is that they announce. You also know there's going to be just as many people who are super upset and say, no, you should have done this map instead. So I think there's taking a lot of time to try and figure out which map is going to be the map that's going to be the first one. That's not an easy decision, I don't think. TBK?
I think you guys make a lot of good points. One thing I think people have to remember is that Heroes, even officially, has been dubbed BlizzCon the game. And you could kind of extend that to Heroes is really Blizzard the game. And with that, Heroes, yes, it's a great game, it's a great MOBA, but it is also an incredible marketing tool for every single other game that Blizzard produces, whether it just be to bring hype to a character from the universe, because usually whenever a hero comes out, there's always a lot of big hype around it, and there's a lot of news and whatnot, or just as a game that can create cross promotions, not just to get people to come into Heroes, but to also get people to try other games out. Heroes, people like Overwatch or StarCraft or World of Warcraft or whatever. Just for an example, like the WoW mount that you get in playing Heroes. If I was a Heroes player that had dabbled in WoW and I was going to back, or maybe there's a little push to get me to go back into WoW and try that new cool mount I got just by playing Heroes. Right. And it's cross promotion. The game is really what it is. And I think, and I feel like Blizzard's recognized this, and I feel like they're okay with Heroes not necessarily, it doesn't need to be the biggest game in the world. It doesn't need to have the biggest market share in the world, because it in itself is just an advertisement for all other Blizzard games. And so there's so much stuff you can do with it, and there's so much potential that can come out of that. So it makes sense, right? Overwatch is the hotness right now. So it makes sense for the Heroes team, either by wanting to or maybe even feeling pressured to put more Overwatch content into Heroes, because that will inevitably draw Overwatch people into the game, or perhaps even get Heroes players that don't play Overwatch interested in Overwatch, because I really like Tracer, or I really like Zarya, or Lucio's pretty cool. And then they go to Overwatch to try out that same character that plays very similarly to how it plays in Heroes. And that's one of the best things I think they've done about the Overwatch characters, is they do make them feel very similar and feel very much like playing that hero in Overwatch. At least from a conversion standpoint, you're still playing top down versus FPS, but that's all, what it is, right? And so I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing a lot of Overwatch, because Blizzard is just as a company making a huge Overwatch push. So it naturally makes sense that their Blizzard the game is also making a big Overwatch push. So I don't think it's bad. I like diversity in the game, and I think the Overwatch characters, even though maybe they brought some cons, like some mobility creep or whatever, it's not all of them. A few of them, yes, but it's not all of them. They have brought a lot of really unique mechanics and unique play styles into the game, and I honestly don't care where they come from. If you're giving me cool characters that bring in cool new stuff that add to my gameplay experience, then that's what I'm looking for, right? I don't necessarily care if they're from Overwatch, they're from Warcraft, StarCraft, or Diablo. I'm just in it for give me cool new characters, cool new kits, cool new stuff to play around with. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that. As far as the Warcraft map goes, I agree with Greg. There's got to be so much pressure on the team for the first Warcraft map they delivered, because everyone's going to have all their own opinions. People want Warsong or AV or at the Basin, or any number of different Warcraft PvP maps. Torn Mill versus South Shore map Yeah, that would be kind of cool. So I mean, there's just a lot of that, a lot of pressure to get it right, and especially now, it's probably been a little better since the Foundry is being much more well received than Hanamura, but I'm sure that Hanamura caused them to take a little step back and say, "Ooh, okay, we got to make sure that what we're doing isn't too crazy or too out of the box for general play, not a brawl, because people just don't accept that, or it's too confusing, or it's too complicated for a 20-minute match to figure all this stuff out." So I'm really hoping we see a Warcraft map. One of the things, hopefully in the next week or two, that I'm working on. Yes, I know I said I wasn't getting more guests, but we're getting more guests just because it's fun. One of the things I want to chat about with someone who is at a higher player level is just game knowledge in general. It's one thing that I think is very lacking in the game, just as an overall what the game itself teaches you and the tools it has to teach you, the drafting, the map strategies. It's not, there's so much knowledge that can be had that isn't necessarily portrayed very well in the game. And then we see that just in the player base. We see lots of people complaining in their, platinum, diamond, even masters, just like, these people don't know how to do this. And we've got like 13 maps now, each with their own unique strategies and things. We've got 70 plus heroes. And so I think it'll be a really good discussion and a really good topic as we move forward, as more maps come out, as more heroes are released.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say on this is I hope this answer doesn't make us sound like, we're not trying to be Blizzard apologists or anything like that. Like, if you're a Warcraft fan and you're upset that there's not Warcraft stuff, sure, you have a right to do that. We're just trying to, like, from a Blizzard standpoint, a company standpoint of why this may happen. And Dutch Diva makes a really good point in chat, just talking about the crossover, which we've talked about. They said crossover compatibility is also a developer goal with cross-game and cross-platform games, and not just Overwatch or Blizzard setting that goal for developers to aim for. Multiple companies have to adapt to the times with so many different gaming platforms and audiences to target. Just a really good point. And there are, lots of companies that do cross-promotion now. But that's all the time we're going to have as far as questions or emails this week. Before we get out of here, though, Multi, why don't you tell them where we can be reached?
Oh, we can be found in-game by typing /join space LOTS, or you can join our Discord, which is sticky at the top of our Twitter, @Lords of the Storm. We're also on twitch.tv/Lords of the Storm, live Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Central, so come check us out there. We're also on facebook.com/Lords of the Storm podcast. You can email us with feedback or questions at lordsofthestorm@outlook.com. And if you want to help out the show, there's a couple good ways of doing this. There's, of course, leaving reviews, positive ones, preferably. 5-star iTunes are particularly shiny, but whatever it is you guys can take the time to do. And again, so if you haven't taken the time so far and you have access to iTunes, that one's really huge for us. I can't stress enough how big of a deal it is, so we really appreciate it. And then perhaps an even bigger deal is our Patreon at patreon.com/Lords of the Storm, where, it's all voluntary, of course, but anyone who's given any amount at all ever is super appreciated. I can't stress enough, you guys. You're what keeps the lights on over here for sure. So we appreciate it.
One thing I want to mention with the iTunes reviews, because I have gotten a couple emails or messages about people who said that they left a review that we haven't seen. Unfortunately, I don't know any way to see reviews from other regions. So I think the only ones we can see are from North America. There may be a way to do it. I don't know. I'll look into it more. And if you know, shoot us a message.
Yeah, please do, because I've always been intrigued to see what's over there. I've heard other shows call them out from other regions, but I think even Canada is separate, isn't it?
I don't know, actually.
Probably.
I think it is. So, yeah, just something to be cognizant of. If you're in any of those other regions, please do anyway. We'll find a way.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
You can also find us individually, myself at GizmoZord on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, all those things, as well as on Convert to Raid Presents the BattleNet News, which is Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. Central. Announcements. So for the next 3 weeks, Pat is going to be out of town, traveling in California, and then he's going back to California for BlizzCon. So I am taking the reins and producing Convert to Raid for the next 3 weeks, which is a big deal for me personally. As I've talked about on this show before, Convert to Raid was the very first podcast I ever listened to. So it's a really big honor just because it hasn't been really done much before. I think it's been 5 years since anyone else produced that show. So a little nerve-wracking. It's going to be a little different just because the way my setup is and stuff. But really looking forward to that. So if you are a fan of other Blizzard games and stuff, feel free and come over and check out that show if you have not done so. Multi, where can you be reached?
Oh, that's really cool, man. Just don't let him back. Just take over the show.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Backgrain's a nice guy. I can be found on Twitter at Multizord. I'm also wanting to point you guys in the direction of our other show called The Cavalry, which is about Overwatch. It's on Twitter at The Cavalry Show, and now it's also live Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. on twitch.tv/The Cavalry Show. And I actually also want to point you guys one more time. It's been a long time since I've talked about them, but there's this other podcast out there a couple of my good buddies do called The Mixed Six. The idea behind this is they rate 6 beers of just various types, and then also use that as the launching point for various discussion points as they go through it too. It's a really funny show. They've been going for a while now, and the reason I point them out too is because they're technically Zords. So we've got Spencer and Caleb, a couple of my old buddies from college, and actually Spencer goes all the way back to high school too, and they now have a Destiny 2 guild on consoles. I'd have to ask them which one, but it's the Mixed Six guild or clan or whatever it's called. And yeah, they go by Egon Zord and Cthulhu Zord. So there you have it. Check them out if you haven't yet.
Bam. TBK.
You can find me on Twitter at TBKZord, twitch.tv/TBKZord. I love you all.
There you go.
Nice and short this week. We want to give a special thanks to our patron producer Ouroboros Sword for helping support the show, and Wicked Kitten in chat for modding for us. We will see you all same time, same place next week, Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Central. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Enough. I shall do no more.
All right, so I can't tell because of